everybody, Joe Misfit Glenn here, along with Charlie Woolstencroft.
How we doing, guys?
Charlie, welcome to the show. Hey, what is it? A minute with Misfit. I got to get used to saying that. I'm still not good at saying that, bro. I'll get there. All right, so we got 3 folks in. Who's in? Come on, folks. Tell me hi. I'd like to tell you hi. I bet you Bryant's in there. He always is.
Yeah, say hi or be hi.
Hey, Aaron's usually up in there first, too. Prez usually comes in. I think people might have needed to go back and get their identities showing. Probably said Facebook user. Because we lost everybody, Charlie, but they'll be coming back.
We're not missing a lot.
All right. Let me see. Let me go back in here and check just to make sure everything is moving smoothly over here.
I don't know how many Navy guys we got in our group.
How many?
Yeah, I don't think there's too many.
Like 2,000 folks?
No, from the Navy, naval guys.
Oh, I don't know about the Navy folks.
I think we're more sporadic, we're kind of farther in between like the Coast Guard.
Okay, here we go. Now we got a person. You see, my computer says 7 o'clock, but my phone doesn't always say it right at the same time. And so maybe everybody's just seeing it at 7 o'clock and coming on in.
That doesn't show anything from this end.
Yeah, no. All right. We got a couple now. All right, there's 3. What's up, Cade? What's up? Cade Moore's on. Charlie?
Kate?
Who else we got? Hey, Aaron, what's up?
You got enough for a platoon?
All right. We're going to go ahead and let them go on. And there's Chris Morris. What's up? The keeper.
Chris, how you doing, Chris?
What was the Destroyer of Dreams was his name, they used to say.
Yeah.
Destroyer of Dreams. That's awesome. Okay, hey, we're going to get going, man. All right, everybody. So tonight we're going to be talking with Charlie Woolstencroft. He's a member of Vet Codes. He's pretty active in the group. He talks to a lot of us, and we talk with him, often. And so, anyway, Charlie, go ahead and introduce yourself, man, and just tell us who you are real quick, and then we'll get into your military service, my man.
Yeah, my name's Charlie Woolstencroft. I'm pushing 70. I'm living the dream, I guess. Me and the old lady got the animals and stuff, and that's how it all wound up. It was a long road to get here, but the service had a lot to do with it too. So that's kind of like what we're talking about.
Cool, man.
I'm just old. I'm an old retired guy. Live on my Social Security, and I work like 16 hours a week, to make up a little cash, and it's all cool. So life's good. Good,
man. I'm glad to hear that, Charlie. Seriously, I'm really glad to hear that. And before we get started, I want to say thank you for your service. That's something I like to do. I want to tell these veterans that I appreciate your service and all that good stuff. All right. And so with that being said, you were in the Navy, correct?
Navy.
Tell us what you did in the Navy, Charlie.
Okay. My rating was called an ABH. It's a aviation bosun's mate. I worked on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, directing aircraft around the deck. Ultimately, winding up spotting them on the cats, directing the airplanes onto the catapults. It was a way cool job. Very dangerous. Long days. It was during the Vietnam War, so we were bombing off the coast, and a short day was 15 hours. Long days were 18, 19 hours, so there wasn't a lot of rest. And basically what we did was, our goal was to put as many bombs as we could off of that thing on the enemy. And most of them went to, when I was in it was getting towards the tail end of the Vietnam War. So we were pushing them bombs into Laos and Cambodia. And we were launching about 220,000 pounds a day off of it. And there was 3 carriers over there, so you can do the math. We just wreaked havoc and destruction with bombs. And that was my job, was to help these jets get off the boat and come back safe and bomb the fuck out of everybody. And that's pretty much what it was.
Did you say 220,000 pounds of explosive?
A day.
A day on each ship?
Yes.
So you 6, damn, that's a lot of explosives.
Yeah, 90% of it was 500-pounders. They were all dummy bombs. Well, very rarely did we use anything that was just a dummy bomb. Those pilots were good enough; they could drop it on a 10-yard square block, so they were pretty good at it. We only used the big stuff like 1,000-pounders, 2,000-pounders on stuff like bridges, dug in encampments, that kind of thing. But basically, it was just small jets doing small carpet bombings, and we did a lot of it. We did a lot of it.
They started to call them sorties, I believe, in Iraq. Oh, that might have been an Air Force name, though, huh?
Every time they launch a plane and bring it back, it's called a sortie.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah,
I just heard that name. I never knew what it meant, really, technically.
Well, we send about 23, 25 sorties at a time, 7 times a day. So we'd start when the sun had come up. We'd launch about 25 aircraft loaded with about 2/3 of them were bombers. The rest of them were F-8 fighter jets to kind of look after them. And 7 times a day.
So
sometimes
like,
8.
Bryant just asked a really good question I hadn't thought about. He said, how much did a carrier hold for weight? Do you know? I mean, for explosives, do you know anything like that? Or did you guys get resupplied daily or something?
I do know that we could go out I remember going out for say 2 weeks, 10 days, 2 weeks. That was pretty much what we'd go out for. And we could carry enough to do that.
Wow. For 2 weeks. Damn,
2
that's
weeks.
a lot of stuff.
We also carried nukes. We had some nukes too. So yeah, most of your carriers have nukes. It's like, it shouldn't be to anybody's surprise, that we also have a couple of big bombs on there too.
So like tactical, were they tactical nukes?
No, they were, tactical, but they were, nothing small anymore back then. And then, I was on the last of the Essex class carrier that was built in World War II. We were a real small carrier. We were fairly long. We were almost 1,000 feet, but we were only 150 foot wide. So we did everything that we did up there in 150 feet strip, so
right.
It was kind of tight and dangerous. I never saw any enemy killed, but I saw an awful lot of our own guys getting killed due to accidents, stupid shit, brawls. I know I talked to Joe about this earlier. We don't want to touch on it too hard, but back when I was in, we had the race riots too. We had a race riot on the ship. Things were out of hand.
With that was the start. Your time was the start of the racial integration into the military. You were part of that integration. You were involved with it. And so, you know what? Yeah, let's talk on that, because that had to be a real serious time. And so what kind of stuff did you guys get involved with this integration, and how did it affect y'all?
Well, everybody pretty well hung in their own little camps. When you're on a ship, it's like being in a squatty, smashed down barracks. It's for those of you that don't know, living on a shipboard, you live in racks, and they're 3-4 high, and then you got about maybe 2 foot, and then they're 3-4 high, and it just goes down the line. Well, everybody's living close, so what everybody did is they kind of packed up. The Chicanos, they kind of had their own little area bunk, and then right next to them was like the blacks, and right next to them was the whites, and next to them was everybody kind of held in their own little racial cliques. That's just kind of how it wound up being. But the bad part is at least on the carrier that I was on, the division I was in, is there was a real bad racial hate. There was still a lot of bad hatred back then. Your guys from the South hated the guys, and they took it to extreme, to the point where there was like attempted murders. I know one guy got actually expired because he through the racial crap, got stabbed to death. One guy jumped off. You never find these guys, And it was all from that. One good friend of mine, they tried to throw one good friend of mine overboard one night.
He jumped off the boat?
Yeah, 3 guys had cornered him with knives. This is in the hangar bay on one of the elevators. And instead of trying to fight off the mix, he decided the ocean would be a better place to be, and we never found him.
Damn.
So that's, just to kind of sum it all up, everybody was pretty hateful. There was an awful lot of racial hatred, a lot.
Yeah.
It was
like Brian said, it does sound like prison. That sounds like the prison vibe, man. Seriously.
And the bad part about it is we didn't have a lot of guys doing these jobs that we were doing on the deck. there was 100 of us marshaling everybody around on all them planes, dragging the chains and the chocks, and you have a lot of people. You were constantly busy, and so like when like let's say tensions would get high, in a group of guys, 5 guys say doing their job.
Yeah.
One of them would like just disappear, like a black guy or a white guy just had enough, instead of like working it out and at least getting the job done. They'd be gone, so you'd be picking up their slack too. So it got dangerous that way.
Huh. Interesting.
And then we lost 2 pilots, cold cats. They misjudged the weight when they catapulted them off, so they hit the water and we run them over. We never found them.
That's
a Marine hopped up on the flight deck during flight ops, wasn't paying attention. He got blown overboard and we never found him. Stuff like that. One guy got sucked into a jet engine. It didn't kill him, but it pretty well crippled him for life. Then another guy was another plane captain was in a plane. Plane captains took care of the airplanes for the pilots. They kind of like babysitted it. They were the, washer, dryer, fixing all this shit. Make sure it's safe. He forgot to put the pin into the ejection seat, and he was washing it up inside in the hangar bay and blew himself under the top of the hangar bay, and they hosed him off. That's the kind of stuff that I saw.
Oh, shit.
But probably about once a month, we lost somebody or somebody died, and we're out in the middle of the ocean, so we had our own problems, in the service as far as that death went. It was pretty dangerous stuff. Don't discount those.
Y'all have one of those safety things like, hey, 0 days without an accident,
Yeah, right.
You, bro. You get a fucking 4-day weekend if you could go 5 days without killing somebody.
Now you line everybody up in the morning and see if somebody fell off, that kind of thing. Yeah.
How terrible. Oh, my goodness. See, I'm glad to be a ground pounder. You guys talk about everybody being in foxholes. Yep, that's where I go. That's where I need to be. Yeah. On the ground. I ain't going in the water. Shoot, I am not the alpha in the water, man. Nope.
Well, I went naval air. I went naval air so I could be on the deck. I didn't spend hardly any time below the waterline. There was no reason for me on the carrier. I worked on the flight deck. Even the mess hall was above the waterline. I didn't go roaming around down in the deep too often. I stayed up top. I got a tan.
So you telling me some of that ship's under the water? Like people walking in the ship that's under the water? There's a lot of that. I don't know. I don't know ships, man.
Yeah, on a carrier, you could go a couple decks down below the waterline.
Oh, hit.
An aircraft carrier. The old aircraft carriers had 10 levels, 10 decks.
Nah,
and the it was. I lived outside.
yeah, I bet. Man.
But the Navy
I went on one ship, and that was in Somalia. I had some R&R for a week, and we went to Kenya on some oil rig. It was full of oil. I remember them telling me that because they said, "Hey, if we take a missile, everybody's toast. So be ready." And I was like, "Okay."
Pretty much.
And we went to Kenya. And that was it.
Well, yeah, the carrier I was on I wasn't nuclear. It was still the old oil, and we carried 900,000 gallons of fuel oil and 600,000 gallons of jet fuel.
Yeah.
Another little tidbit.
All your explosives, not to mention the explosives. That's incredible.
And everything else. Yeah, the Navy really wasn't a joke back then. They're not even. It's not even much of a joke today. Thank God we're not fighting the kind of wars where we have so much attrition. Back in Vietnam when they started in '68 when they escalated it, that year they drafted almost 500,000 guys. You had about a 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 chance of hitting 18 in high school, being in the service. It was to kind of bring that back too. You know what I mean? It's like it was almost a way of life. You can almost count on being in the service. I mean, it was pretty bad.
Now, Charlie, I know this thing, but I think everybody needs to hear about the struggles about this time because I don't know that we touched on it too much. You might have mentioned it, but I want to touch on it about the draft. This wasn't something that you had just dreamed of for your whole life. So tell me a little bit about, that part and what that did to you and how it made your buddies feel. Because I know they talked to you about this kind of stuff. Tell me about that.
Well, for me, I was pretty much going through high school. My last 3 years of high school, I had a 40-hour-a-week job stocking groceries at night. So I was, I didn't have a lot of time, left in my life. I had a full-time job, full-time school. And I was like top 10% of my high school too, like 500. So I wasn't like, I didn't do no fluff job either. But I didn't think a whole lot of it. And then all of a sudden, my 18th birthday came around my senior year, in March, and I got about, less than half of the school year done. I get called to the office, and that's pretty much when reality hit. The counselors, right when you were in high school, would call you in on your birthday, and you'd fill out the form. They'd hand it to you and say, "Here's your draft form, fill it out. Here's your card, put it in your wall."
Yeah.
You got about a 1 in 3 and 1 in 4 chance of getting getting a call from government, and they're going to call you up. Well, so when that came down, that realization hit me hard. Then I started realizing what was going on. I knew a lot about the war because it was getting towards the end. So they were still drawing draft numbers. So if I'd have wrote it out and took the chance that year in '72, I could have wound up in the Army and the Marines. Instead, I went ahead and joined the Navy. My number was 120. I think that year they drafted up to 95, so they would have missed me. But the years before that, it was a lot heavier into the numbers. How the draft worked. They do your birthdays out 365 days. You put all your birthdays in a drum. They'd pull it out and they'd write it down, and they'd do all go through the whole 365. And then however many they wanted, they start at number 1 and they start just 1 through 120 this year, 1 through 115. Right. And they conscript you into this. They conscripted you. But to me, I didn't look at it as draft, but they conscripted you. They took you. So I joined the Navy so I didn't have to go in country.
Yeah.
That's how I wound up in the Navy.
And good call. And didn't you do some kind of typing or something of the sort at first in the Navy before you got on the flight deck?
Yeah, it was kind of crazy when I first got assigned to the boat. They sent me to see my division, my company commander, to get my billet, whatever the hell I'm going to be doing for him, what he's going to do with me. And he says, my yeoman's getting out, and you're the only one who can type. I says, what do you mean? Basically, I says, huh? He says, well, I've read your record and you can type. He says, nobody else here can type. This kind of falls back on some of the attitudes and the intelligence of some of the people I worked with, but, not trying to put anybody down, but nobody back then, type. Well, I had taken typing, when I was in high school, so I knew how to type. So they made me a yeoman. It took me about 4 months to get out of that office and get up on the deck. But right. Yeah. So I got to know pretty much anybody and everybody. I assigned our mech before in that lousy 4 months before it was over. My company commander gave me jobs like filling out quarterly marks for people, assigning mess cooks. I had control over supply. I actually filled out the Liberty cards for everybody. I was like everybody. I was like a mom. Made coffee, because I wasn't working on the deck. I'd go out and fill up coffee pots for the guys working and shit like that. Right. So it was a cake job, but it was too close to the big boys. Huh. I worked for a commander, which is a lieutenant colonel. I was a little bit too close to him.
Did you get any special shit besides what you were just talking about? Because doing Liberty, like you being that guy to write up Liberty tickets or whatever. You were like the guy everybody wanted to be best friends with, I assume.
We had 4 duty stations, and we also had a 5th duty station. It was a white card, and that was no duty at all. In other words, you didn't have a duty station. I just filled out a white card for myself right off the bat, and I didn't stand duty for 4 months.
Damn.
That's how that worked. Yeah, and I did have control of the cards, but even I couldn't really screw around with it, all that heavy. One night when we were in port in Long Beach, and we were in dry dock, and I decided we had an apartment out in town. Me and a bunch of us. I had duty that night, but I had no watch. So I thought, well, I'm going to get out of here and go home. So I just took a 440 line off the deck, tied some knots in it about every 2 feet, threw it over the side, skimmy down to the dock about 3 stories down. Had my buddy pull it up for me, meet me at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I came back and skimmed back up the rope. And you get a little creative, so you can go have a little fun.
Nice.
but I was a pot smoker. I was a known pot smoker. Spent some break time for pot smoking. It was that kind of thing. I did my job very well, but it wasn't no tolerance then. It wasn't tolerated, but it was prevalent. There was an awful lot of us back then where alcohol and pot was pretty common and pretty widespread.
I was going to ask you about that. Like with the the racial integration and all the strife, being out on the boat for all that time, nowhere to go besides where you're at. That had to be hard. But now you throw some drugs up in the mix, man, and alcohol. And, so tell me a little bit about that, man, and tell me how good the weed was back then, would you?
We'll go with how good the weed was back then first.
Yeah.
I always wind up getting these things. I guess you would call it Thai stick. It was manufactured like a Thai stick, but it wasn't from Thailand. It came from Laos. And me and a couple of my buddies, we got hooked up with a guy who got a small batch of it, and it came in these bricks with 20 sticks in it. I paid $60 for it, $2 a stick. Two of us stayed high on it for about 6 months. You told pot. I've never smoked pot as powerful it is. It was just pot, but you couldn't finish a joint without damn near passing out. And I'm talking a pinner joint. So the pot over there, and that came from from the Tonkin Gulf. And then when we hit Africa, I went to Mombasa, Kenya. Some of the best pot I've ever smoked was I picked up there for. I think I gave a little girl a quarter for 3 joints, for a day. And that stuff would kill you. The pot over there was top-notch pot. The thing is those people over there have been growing it for so many thousands of years that to them it's just like taking a shower. They have no meters. They don't go by. They don't fertilize. They know the plant. They know when to take it just by feel and looking at it, and they did a really good job of it. And the pot over was something else. But now as far as dealing with the the alcohol drug use, I'll keep it to just the company I was in. I was in a division, we call them. It'd be, I guess, a company to you guys who are pound ground. There's about 100 of us, and in that 100, at least 90 of us either drank regularly or did drugs or both. There was only 4 or 5 people that I can think of that didn't, and if they did, who knows, But we probably had 5 heroin addicts. We had our LPO was taking speed. He ate beans. We call them beans back then, amphetamines. He was always beaned out. It was a lot of drug use. We even had a pilot. One of the plane captains was telling me he's cleaning out his pilot's jet, wiping the jet out when he came back from the sortie. Found a rig, sitting on what you'd consider the dashboard. It was pretty widespread. And it caused a lot of problems, but the problems that it caused wasn't so much affecting the work, because everybody pretty much knew they had to do their job. So most people kept it down to a point where at least they could functionally, reliably do their job. But that was how we did it. I think that was just part of the way, just to get away too. Yeah. Just to not have to deal with the mental. It had nothing to do with the physical. It was all brains. Stay screwed up.
Back then we didn't deal with, oh my gosh, I have a mental problem. It was like, hey soldier, what's your problem? Get back to work. That kind of, there was no give to it. You either did or you did not. And so drugs, I could see being it probably would have been for me as well if I didn't have support other places,
Yeah, I can't attest to the whole service. I can't attest to the Army and the Marines out pounding the ground. All I can really attest to is what I had to go through and what I saw. And on the boat that I was on, yes, it was pretty rampant.
I've heard stories from every branch. Every branch has these same stories, Charlie. Yeah,
and the bad part is they didn't screen you for any of that when you got out. Back then you were in one day and the next you were in the States, pretty much. You were going home. There was no classes. There was no monitoring. There was no, mentoring. They just ignored it. A lot of guys got out, junkies, and wound up with bad habits and didn't have access to dope. And the pot we were smoking was God bless, so trying to find good pot in the States was like, another nightmare. It just turned into a nightmare for a lot of us. And I think a lot of us wrestled more with the drugs, and we wrestled with the bullshit that we dealt with when we were in the Navy. Right. We didn't see the kind of death you saw. We didn't see a lot of blood and stuff. You saw your death and stuff. It was a little different, a lot different. And a lot of them had a little dope. And I don't know. It lasted with me until into my mid-40s before I finally got a clue. It hung that long with me, about 20 years. Break that habit.
I've been telling myself that if cannabis would have been in my life, my whole military career, I think it would have been a way better experience. I think I wouldn't have made some crazy ass decisions that I shouldn't have made and end up getting hurt. I would have had way better decision-making skills while I'm calm instead of angry. Anyway, cannabis would have helped me get through the military. I promise you would.
Yeah. I'll tell you one story about a guy. His name was House. I'll never forget House. House was on doing a 4-hour rover patrol watch on the boat one night. I'm sitting watching TV in our little TV. Well, we had a TV, but it wasn't much of a room. We crammed a bunch of guys in there watching the tube. And we have these 5-inch 38 shells that we use for ashtrays. He had like 3 bottles of quarts of JV Scotch in it. And in the 4 hours of his roving patrol, because he'd come through our birthing compartment, part of his roving patrol, he'd take the ashtray off the top, reach into that shell, and pull out a bottle of Scotch and take some swigs off of it. I saw him drink 3 quarts of Scotch on a 4-hour watch, and he would function. It was this kind of. That's the extreme, but we had it. Yeah, they didn't say a whole lot. People had stuff on the boat.
Interesting.
There's a lot of booze on the boat.
Let me look at some of these comments. I wanted to say hi to some people that I didn't get to. Nikki, I didn't get to say hi to you. Nah, welcome. Adam,
Mama, Nikki.
Adam, I don't recognize your name. And well, thank you for showing up, bro, and welcome. John Michael Stanley Sr., welcome, my man. Bryant, Chris Morris, yeah, okay, I think we caught everybody so far. Cade Moya, Facebook user. I can't read your name, but in the beginning, before you jump on the live, if you just give it go page down just a little bit and give StreamYard permission to view your name or show your name, we will be able to see who you are. Dirk, what's up, my man? Cade, again, and cool. So now towards the end of the time, Charlie, right? Like, so you're getting short timer syndrome kind of a deal, right? Like, you're going to be going. Was there any hopes to try to re-enlist, or were you ready to get out? And what was your plans after that? What did you plan to do, my man?
If it hadn't have been for like my Vietnam experience, I like to just look at it like the Vietnam experience. If it hadn't have been for that, I probably would have stayed in. I'd at least re-upped another time.
Sure.
But all the stuff that we've been talking about, since we've been on, is like that all had a pretty big effect on me. You start looking around after you've been in a while, and you start getting that little power. You're not a new guy anymore. You know what's going down.
Yeah,
Once you start to know what's going down, the captain knew my name. You know what I mean? It's like, after a while, you're a known. You either go hide or they know who you are. Right. But I was one of the guys that they knew who I was. They asked me to re-up. They busted me twice for pot, and they still asked me to re-up, which I always thought was pretty ironic. But at that time, no, I made that decision not to stay in if that's how the service was going to be. I don't know how it changed afterwards. From what I understand is they tried to clean it up, so to speak, pretty quick. But I wasn't in the time when it was like, it was a free for all. It's like a jail, like the one guy said. It's like kind of like being in a jail.
Yeah,
it was kind of like being in a jail. Yeah, you got like 2,200 people on a boat. You're on it for over 2 years, and you only know the names of 80 people, 70 people, maybe. You just don't mix. Nobody really mixed a lot. Everybody stayed to their own little cliques, which I always thought was pretty sad.
Old Dirk is saying it was the same way on his ship. Yeah, man, that's terrible, sad, but it's the truth. And we all survive. We all get through it, though. Eventually. I wish it wasn't so, though.
The bright spot was when I got out. I copped a job through the Army Corps of Engineers out of Coos Bay, Oregon. I got on a dredge ship. It's the Army Corps of Engineers. The officers, the 3 officers on it were the captain, XO, and the LPO were regular Army. They were Navy Army, I guess you might call them. They were shipboard Army. And the rest of the crew were all hired civilians, and I got the green hole government check. So it took me about 2 years if I got that job. Now they have 3 dredge ships that dredged the West Coast. After I hadn't been on for much more than a year, and one of the other ones hit a cargo freighter about 10 miles out at sea one night, sunk it. Well, it pretty well ruined it. They eventually hauled it up and refitted it, but it took them over 5 years. And so I was one of the later guys to get hired. They laid everybody off by seniority, and they laid off a third of us, and so I got laid off. And by the time they had called me back, which they actually called me back about 6 years later, I had glowing recommendations, whatever. They wanted me to come back. By that time, I'd already gotten married, had a kid, had stuff going on. The pull and the take. Like, what do you want to do? What do we want to do? And so I kind of wish it hadn't worked out that way. I'd have rather retired off of that. That was a good gig. That was the best gig I ever had.
Hell yeah.
On the boat, in the water. I got paid for, I worked 15 days. Well, you'd work 10 days, then you're off for 10 days. You'd work 4, and you work 4, then you're off 4. For 28-day months is how they ran it. I was only on the ship 15 days of the month, and I got paid for 30. They paid you for them weeks that you were off. It was a great gig. I loved it. I didn't have to wash my clothes, 24-hour food. We had cooks, couldn't ask for a better life. Once I got out of the Navy and realized there was a whole other world out there on the water, yeah, I went for it, but it just didn't pan out, So, and then me being from the desert, it's like, I wound up coming back home, to the Southwest, and I just never got on another boat after that. But I loved the sea life. I just didn't care much for the Navy, at least the Navy that I was in.
Well, you were in a time. I mean, just think of the time. I mean, look at all the crap you had to go through. The racial integration for one. Then you had all the fighting, and nobody could get along. And then you had a war on top of it. And, and all the drugs and come on, man. Who'd want to stick around with that shit? Not me.
Yeah, I don't want to make it sound bad, but that's pretty much how it was, Well, you still had the Southern good old boys that hated the blacks, and you had the guys that were like from the inner city. One of the black guys, his name was, I'd never forget him. His name was Audrey Denoy Taylor. Great guy. I'd hang with him a lot too. Back in previous, he was like part of the crew. That hung out with us. Smart as hell. He was from Detroit. He was a gang member since he was like 13. He had a 45 bullet hole in him before he ever got in the service. So you had your inner city boys, and he hated the black, and he was one. And it goes on and on and on and on. But I don't know. Maybe it was just me, but that's how it pretty well was.
Well, drugs have always been a thing. They were in my time. They were in probably everybody's time. They all saw them. As far as the prevalence and the amount, probably not so much. But the racial divide, we had little issues, but it was more about ego and not color, if you will. Like, I'm better than you, and no, you're not. And and then a bad name would always come out, and then that would start up the racial part of it, right? And so that was all it went with us. But whenever you get a bunch of strong heads in together, especially on a ship where you can't go nowhere, man, that's no way, dude. I couldn't do it. And
you don't go nowhere. When the fight's over, the guy's sleeping like 8 foot from you.
Yeah, no, man, I would need more space. But yeah, so your time, who could blame
we had no what you call air conditioning. They had fans that blew air around but didn't blow much. Right. It was always hot. We were talking golf, it was always hot, always miserable. No rest, a lot of work, a lot of hours. People were always on edge. When we go out for a normal routine, 10 days, 2 weeks wasn't too bad on everybody. But from time to time, we do a long haul. When we wound up going over off the coast of Africa, when Gaddafi kicked in. Remember when we put a bomb through his window?
Yeah.
You remember that? We put a bomb in his bedroom window. The Navy did.
Anyway. I heard.
Well, I was one of the 2 carriers that were over there to do that, and that was a 30-day haul. All of us were out for 30 days. We were, working all them hours, and after about 25 days, people started, I'm going to say, killing each other. It was like it was time to pull in and give people a break. Now these poor guys, they go out, I hear, for like 5 and 6, 7 months and never pull into a port. And I'm wondering, well, they must have a lot nicer ships now for them to, or things for them to do. I don't know how they did it.
I mean,
we didn't.
That's probably accurate.
We didn't have pop machines. We didn't have phones. You couldn't call home. Mail would take 2-3 months to, 2 months, 6 weeks, 2 months to get to you.
Yeah.
We were kind of isolated from the world. I called my mother from the Philippines for Christmas. I had to do it on a payphone. I did it from the Philippines. I had to find a payphone to do it with. I made $365 a month. And I had to do it from a payphone. And to talk to her for 20 minutes cost me $120 in quarters, and I literally had to feed $120 in quarters into a payphone to talk to my mother for 20 minutes for Christmas. And that's the kind of the disassociation we had from from home. It was there was no home either. I mean,
we had that too in my beginning in 92, 93 in Somalia. We had some little green phone that you had to hit the operator, and the operator was supposed to connect you back to the States, and it was a crapshoot if you were even going to hear anything or connect. So a lot of times it'd be like, I'd hear my wife's voice and I'd be like, honey, hey, and blah, blah, blah. And before we could say anything else, it'd hang up. And that was all I could talk to her for 2 weeks. But we got to hear each other's voices. And so then we started saying, I love you immediately. As soon as we heard each other's voice, I love you. And then maybe we'd get 5 minutes tops, then there's 100 dudes behind me wanting it too, so.
Well, I guess lucky me, I had AT&T.
Shit like that, dude. I mean, it was AT&T that we were talking with, but it was not like a cell phone like what we have today or satellite phones or nothing like that. It was some weird stuff.
Yeah, you could get something like if your mother died or something and they contacted the service and the boat and the Red Cross.
Western Union.
The captain might might have you. You might get to yak a little bit, but it would take the act of God, to be able to get on the phone to call anybody at home. So we had that disconnect too. And the ship that I was on, the Oriskany did more war cruises in Vietnam than any other carrier. It was constantly over there. And so the guys that were on it, when I got on there towards the end of the war, a lot of them guys had been on there for 3 and 4 cruises. You get on an aircraft carrier, you work on the deck, and that's pretty well where you're going to be for 4 or 5 years. I mean, it's a job. There's not a whole lot of people that really do it. And so they're just stuck. Well, these guys were wore out from it too. So when I got in, there was also that we're the warriors and you're the new guys, so, and we're kind of like taking over from them, because all of them were getting out. So we had that kind of an issue too. But I pretty well got thrown into the mix. I never went to an A school. See, I never went to a school for what I did. And that was an A school rated job. So when I wound up on that carrier and they threw me up on the flight deck, they just sent me to the fleet and I wound up learning on the job. So that was pretty stressful too. It's like getting thrown into your first firefight, I guess you can imagine. Not everybody wears ear protection, but not everybody has walkie-talkies and can talk. So you're the lowly guys on the pole working on the flight deck. You have to do everything visually. You hear nothing, so, it was one of them kind of jobs too. So it racked the brain. It was a hard job. I still had an earplug in.
I've never had an earplug in when it counted. When it was supposed to count, I've never had one in.
Yeah, well, you couldn't hear it. You had to have your ears on. Yeah.
What's it?
If I wear ear protection on the flight deck and you have no hearing left. I mean, it'll strip of your hearing, and right now it'll take it away. Yeah,
you should. I mean, of course, but like for us, man, we always just got the shit into the stick and weren't expecting it. So it was all about response and who has an earplug in all day? No, not me. And so I'd always get my bell rung from too many rounds being fired next to my face.
Sorry to hear that. Yeah.
It is what it is. But you know what, man? I want to go ahead and look at some comments and see if we got anything else, Charlie. And going to go ahead and wrap up. I think everybody's kind of – and we got any questions for Charlie, man, here?
Yeah, that's about all I can think of other than just telling old little war stories.
Yeah, man. Dude, you did some really cool shit, Charlie. I'm really proud of you, man, for making it.
I forgot to mention the travel part, too. Amongst all the bullshit, I got to see, Hong Kong, Mombasa, Kenya, Manila. I got to go places. And you didn't spend a lot of time there, but I used that time fairly wisely. It's not like I went out and got all screwed up and didn't get to see the city. So I got to see a lot of nice, weird shit. Back in the 70s, too, people weren't as well traveled either. So that really was, interesting to see.
Right.
You go back 50 years.
Traveling around like that is pretty bitching,
Yeah, use that wisely if you get to travel.
Hey, so we got a comment. Thank you for what you did for your country, Charlie. God bless.
No problem.
We got Shane says, thank you for speaking about your time, sir. And Charlie, once again, I wanted to tell you, man, thank you for your service and thank you for coming on here and sharing your story with us, man. Take time to share your story with us. I appreciate you. And if you come up with any other stories that you may have forgotten about, let me know, man. We'll come on and do another 30 minutes and tell everybody about it. Cool?
Yeah, well, it's like we talked a little bit about it. I thought, well, I know I got to be one of the more aged guys, with the group. I don't know how many of us are 70, the Father Time and, Joe, I don't know how many of us are. I don't know too many of us of this age. And I don't think there's as many naval personnel as so much as Army and Marines in the group. So I thought maybe I could give you a Wayback Machine, in the Navy during a Vietnam War era, because that's all I know. I spent my time in doing that and a different era, different
Navy folks. There's a fair amount of Navy folks in here, Charlie. I promise you, they'll start reaching out to you, man, for sure.
Kind of like I was my generation. I look back on the guys from World War II. I even look back to then. I lost a grandfather in World War One. My grandfather wound up succumbing to injuries from World War One. I lost family in World War II. That kind of thing. So now I'm the World War II guy to the new guys, because Vietnam is now looking back, about the same kind of a deal. And
yeah,
we did get a bad shake.
Hey, Charlie, go look up Dirk. Go look up Dirk Kuiker, man, or Kuiker. He's a 70s Navy guy. So
we'll have to.
And he'll have to check you out, man, because I have a feeling you guys got some stories, man.
Yeah, we can swap a little PI stories.
Hey, Pamela Ray's Navy from 02 to 06. Yeah, I'm telling you, man, there's a fair amount of Navy up in Betcoast, man, for sure.
Yeah,
I know this.
Yeah, Pamela, when I was in, there was no women in the ships. They didn't allow it. So,
sure
that's a whole new, that'd be interesting for me to talk to you about how that works out.
Sure.
Kind of really curiosity.
I'm sure that was a whole nother mess up, like not mess up, but really hard to get used to, just like your integration. I mean, everybody just kind of froze about it, and had a bad time. I assume there was a problem with that as well.
Yeah, for me to wrap my head around women in the Navy, it's like, woo, that's I had to toughen up, guys. It's like I commend you, I guess. I don't know how that works out for the how they treat you, how they treat you ladies out there, but I hope it's okay.
I know that they had their challenges. I know that. That's all I need to say. I can't really speak on it because I'm no female in that position. But
anyway, all you need a couple of guys with too many stripes to fuck with your life, and I'm sure that goes down. So I'm sorry for you guys that have to suffer that, you girls.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Charlie, we're gonna go ahead and wrap it up, man. Thank you again, everybody. Thank you for showing up. We had 12 viewers tonight. That's
nice talking to everybody.
That's a good average. It's better than normal. But
nice talking to everybody.
So
remember about Vetco's too before we wrap up here. What Vetco's has pretty well done for me.
That's a good point, Charlie. Good point.
I've known Scott Esser for 30 years. I can't remember. Scotty, and me and him are buddies, and he got me involved with this. It's been about a year now. I think I've been here about a year. Because I'm into the growing my own pot. I'm not into it like. I just growing up to keep me and the old lady and a couple of kids high, and I pretty well leave it at that. I'm not in it for money or anything like that. It's just about good, decent, free, unadulterated, pot. Mm-hmm. So I got involved with Echoes for that, but it very quickly turned around into being other than, for lack of a better word, we use the word brotherhood, or sisterhood, service buddies,
the camaraderie.
Yeah, the camaraderie. Now, at my age, at 70, it's not so much of the jump up and down and bump chest kind of camaraderie. Right. It's more of now I kind of look at I'm more, for lack of a better word, more judgmental, but in a good way. I get to talk to people. I remember I called up Joe one night. I was having a bad time, and I got on, and Joe Schroeder. I can't remember how to pronounce his name.
Joe Schroeder. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he popped on and helped me through some shit. I know, Joe, you helped me through some shit. We can help each other. No, it's not like you got to get to know everybody and make friends with everybody, but at least make a connection. I'm sure you can make a connection with a few people in this group. And if you have things that bother you, you're a lot better off talking to a vet who's been through stuff. If that's the thing that's kind of bugging your head, if it's like service related that filtered into your life now, I think you'd be better off, sticking to having a conversation with vets. Because if nothing else, they're going to help you through that time, and at least you're going to be okay while you're on the phone. It's one of them kind of deals.
Right, for sure.
Stay in touch. I still stay in touch with some guys from 50 years ago when I was in the service. And, we're not close, but we keep in touch. We go visit every now and then. It's a good thing, and it's really helped me out. And vet codes has turned into more of that for me than it's turned into the I don't need to win a whole bunch of more seats because I got plenty, thank you guys, that kind of thing. Right. But I want to stay involved because it's from that angle of it. Not only can because I can't partake a lot of growing knowledge to the group as much as you've got there's so many people in this group that have taken it to such a level that I'm not involved with. Right. Oh, the little gig that I got going, I grow a really decent pot. It keeps me high. It works, so I kind of just keep it simple like I'm doing. But all the rest of this stuff is what's really meant a lot to me. So that's what I got out of vet codes, and that's why I'll stick in it. Even if for some reason I wind up quit smoking pot, I'll still be in the group. That kind of thing. Yeah. So that's awesome, where.
I'm glad vet codes has been able to do this for you, Charlie, because it did the same thing for me too. I said, I've told it several times. I didn't talk to people for 15 plus years. I didn't leave my house. Never had to, man. I was here, right? And so I always had the urge to want to talk to somebody, but was still kind of angry, you ain't going to understand. So why even try? And then when I started finding these people that had a little bit more of that knowledge, that like-minded individual that had been to the same places I had been to. And, I have my brother Keith that I always had the option to talk to. But sometimes Keith's busy too, but to have these kind of people to talk to on different levels now, because I don't always want to talk about combat. Sometimes I just want to talk about missing the damn military, and other people in here really have that vibe too. Sometimes, some of them. Anyway.
And you shouldn't have to worry about taking too much judgment from people in this group. If you do, if it gets to that point where you actually reach out to somebody and it's a bummer, for lack of a better word, if there's flack, I doubt if you'll see it. And if you do, let us all know so everybody can put each other straight, and then we're all still involved and still in, and nobody gets kicked out, and there's not an issue. Don't use this group to fucking vent your world out. Use this group to help you keep your shit together. That's what I do. I mean, keep our shit together. Keep moving on, man.
Good shit.
None of us, we're all us servicemen. We're in the service. And when we get out, I can tell you this for being out now for 49 years, that you're never really out. You're still in. Somewhere in your head, you're still in. And once you actually realize that, your life will get a lot easier because you'll be able to, you understand more about why you do the fucking fucked up things you do. Even they don't have to be, the fucked up things don't have to turn into things fucking up. It's just that it's just fucked up. That's just how it is.
It is. I get it.
Smoke pot, stay off of hard drugs, don't drink a lot. That's what I say, and it's worked for me. And having a family that's to keep your shit together at home. I got a great lady. She knows my history. She backs me on stuff. I know Joe's old lady's she's been with his old lady for 30 years or so, and that helps a lot too. You need a stable home environment, people you can trust really close to you. It doesn't have to be more than just one person even. And then you got, then you need buddies. This is where I find them. I don't have a lot of friends that aren't, believe it or not, I don't have a lot of old friends that aren't vets. It just kind of works out that way. Never thought about it. That's how it is. Most of my friends I've known are vets. They're either vets or bikers, and
you get attracted to it. It's like you're attracted to that vibe. It's just what is comfortable for you. At least that's how it works for me. I'm attracted to that kind of a vibe. It just happens.
Yeah, there's that energy level, that never really goes away from you. Even though you're sitting on the couch all mellow and stuff, sometimes the brain just starts to thinking and you don't sleep, you know, it's that kind of thing. There is an energy to it. Anyway, that's where I'm at.
Hey, Charlie, we had a great show, brother. Thank you so much, man.
Anytime.
And everybody, thank you for sticking out and listening to us jibber jabber for a while. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. All right. And so until next time, folks, happy growing, and thank you for your service, everybody else too that's listening. All right. All right.
You
Peace,
bet.
y'all. Charlie, hang out. I'm going to be right with you, Bubba.
Okay.